Hi, welcome back to SCW. It's time to get in the time capsule once again. We're going to WWE Extreme Rules 2012. I've got two very special guests, and we're going to dissect the show from start to finish, including the Extreme Rules match between John Cena and Brock Lesnar, of course, who just returned to the company at that time. But without further ado, going to get my guests on straight after this. So first and foremost, a regular that does a lot of the retro reviews with me is none other than Barry from NonStop Wrestling Chat. Barry, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic, man. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. It's great to have you on the channel as always. And of course, we've got a debutant coming onto SCW for the first time ever. None other from Scott Retro Wrestling. Of course, I'm talking about Scott. Scott, how are you doing, my man? Great to have you on the channel.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm currently hungry right now, so I'll just brief everyone. I am waiting for a food delivery, so if I disappear within the first few minutes, you'll understand why. And if I'm eating during this stream, I apologize in advance. But thanks for having me on. And a really good show for me to be on.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'll tell you what, it's great to have you on the channel. And just to say, if you're feeling a bit hangry, I hope that's not going to actually be too harsh on your star ratings today.
No, no, I don't think I will be. I was just enjoying the show. Obviously, watching some content for my channel. So I literally watched Extreme Rules last night, and then obviously I've been watching some of the shows that I'm going to be reviewing coming up. So no, I'm okay. I've got some energy drinks to keep me going while I wait.
That's what we like to hear. Fantastic. Well, the energy's up there. And Barry, is the energy going for you as well? How did you feel with Extreme Rules 2012 when it was given to you?
Okay, man. It was a pretty good show to watch. I'll be the guy that will bring it down with the rants like the last one that we done. I've got a good few rants coming for this one as well, but I will keep it for when the show starts.
Absolutely. Well, fantastic indeed. Looking forward to it. Like I say, we've got both of the guys on it. The links for both of their channels are in the description below. Of course, Barry always is an absolute machine with his content, consistently pumping out reviews, watch-alongs. He's even done 10 YouTubers that he likes to follow this week as well, which we're very humble for that video. Thanks for the shout-out on that. And of course, Scott Retro Wrestling, say it's exactly what it says on the tin. Retro Wrestling. He's perfectly made for videos like this, which is why it's so good to have him on the channel. So without further ado, to give people a little bit of detail about Extreme Rules 2012, just before we start, of course, it was on the 29th of April in 2012, funnily enough. It was in the Allstate Arena of Chicago, Illinois, and in attendance, we had 14,817 bums in seats, or probably standing at some point as well. The buy rate for the pay-per-view was 263,000. Of course, we're still in the buy rate era, very close to the network era, but still in the times of buy rate. And we had commentary team for the whole evening of Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler, and Booker T. One of a small bit of note, just for you to note as well, is that Santino Marella actually defeats The Miz with the Cobra Training United States Championship on the pre-show in less than a 5-minute match. This match is so short, it's not on the network version, and, well, Dave mostly didn't give it a good rating anyway, so I chose on purpose not to include it in this retro review. So without further ado, let's go on to the intro, and lads, I'll get your thoughts on that in a couple of seconds, because I thought this was quite a creative intro. Of course, Brock Lesnar had returned to WWE for the first time since WrestleMania 20, after WrestleMania 28 to F5 John Cena. He said that he's not a superstar, he's an ass kicker, I should say. Maybe a kisser as well, who knows? But he's an ass kicker, and he's here to make the company look legitimate. Cena says, look, you might be sick of me, that is one thing, but to say there isn't legitimate talent in the WWE is just plain ignorant. Brock, though, says he has one objective, and that's to bring the paint to John Cena. And you can see it's just back and forth consistently between these two, almost one-upsmanship as well, because Cena saying Brock is here to do what Brock does best, let's look out for him. Brock says, look, John thinks he's a top guy, but everyone can see right through his stuff. If I was still around like I was for the last 8 years, John Cena would be carrying my bags to the building. Cena says the only bags he would be carrying is to the hospital after beating Brock Lesnar. And Brock says that that's a scared man right there. There's also questions as well of John Cena's mindset. Of course, he lost at WrestleMania 28 and arguably was seen as the biggest match of all time at that point against The Rock. Once in a lifetime. We knew it was twice, but at that point it was once. And Brock says it's not a wrestling match. It's an Extreme Rules match. Cena says that Brock wants to eliminate me from the equation. And Brock then says that he's a big steam engine that is going to run him over. So that's pretty much a lot of detail there, a lot of back and forth, those sit-down interviews of what they were doing on the build to the pay-per-view. Barry, I'll go to you first. What were your thoughts of this pay-per-view opening video package?
I thought it was pretty good. It was reminiscent of the kind of old times when they had like really cool packages to kind of build into the pay-per-view, and I enjoyed it. Like most of the opening periods of kind of right up till this point, every pay-per-view always has kind of like a cool little story package put together. You don't really get that much nowadays, but it was pretty fun. I'm going to keep my Brock Lesnar John Cena rant till later, but it was pretty fun.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get into the rants of the natural detail of the match once we get towards the main event. But as an opening video package, Scott, what did you find with it? Would you enjoy it?
Yeah, I think. Well, this is actually pretty thingy for me because this was actually around about the time I was getting back into wrestling. I think WrestleMania 28 was the show that got me back in, and then I watched the Raw after Brock returned, and I was like, okay, what's happening here? You can tell Brock doing promos, even in 2021, he's still not the best. And I believe it was not long after this, Paul Heyman was brought back in. So you can tell that he gets his point across, Brock, and he says what he thinks. But yeah, I like it when a opening promo package kind of adds more matches to talk about, because there was a lot of good stuff to look forward to on the show. I'm not the biggest fan of like just focusing on one match, if that makes sense. It's like, I know it's the big match, but I'm like, there's other good stuff that people enjoy. It was still good, but I'm just not a fan of like focusing on the one match.
Well, like you said, there's 2 World Heavyweight Championship matches. Obviously, you've got Sheamus, Daniel Bryan. You've got CM Punk in his hometown as well against Chris Jericho. Those sort of things aren't really heavily highlighted in that opening video package. But for me, I would say I totally take that point on board. But I really like the fact that the focus, I mean, a lot of this story seems to be built around legitimacy. And it feels quite legitimate, almost like where Brock has come from in that sort of UFC environment, these sit-down interviews, rather than we usually see so much this focus in ring stuff and people trying to get the one-upsmanship in front of the crowds. I like that sit-down vibe about it. I don't know, just something, one person, a camera. It's kind of like what we do actually on a regular basis. We sit there and we sort of zone into you and we tell you our point of view. And I kind of like that point. I like the back and forth between the two. But I think Scott does make a good point. Of course, usually you do get a focus of a lot of different matches. But it is what it is. It's an opening package that certainly I think it does add interest into the pay-per-view. That's no doubt. Or certainly its main event, if not the rest of the card, as we go into it. And the first match we're going to talk about actually is going to be a Falls Count Anywhere match from Randy Orton versus Kane. And I've got to say, as an opener, I thought that this was pretty decent overall for what it is. I mean, these two kind of are more of a slower sort of style, but to be given this sort of environment, I think certainly they got to have a bit of fun with it. The match went for 16 minutes and 43 seconds. And I mean, the sort of weapons were kind of brought in nice and early into this match. I mean, Randy Orton goes straight to the floor and Kane then brings a pipe in there and that's where he gets to the first pinfall. But they end up fighting through the crowd, doing some near falls, going towards the staging as well. A lot of counterproductive of moves as well. I mean, Randy Orton was actually on the shoulders of Kane at one point, going to be thrown into the staging, but of course, Randy Orton escapes from it and lands a drop kick. These two go backstage as well. They end up brawling as well amongst where a lot of wrestlers are watching the show, which Zack Ryder thinks it's a good idea for him to get involved. He has a bit of beef with Kane going on around that time in the start of 2012. And of course, that doesn't lead him to getting anywhere. But eventually, Kane and Orton, they fight back to ringside as well once again. And when they do, Randy gets a chair and and he hits Kane with multiple chair shots to the back. At this point then, Randy sets up a table on the outside, I believe this is. Kane attempts to chokeslam. It's countered. We see Randy hits his DDT. You know, he hangs the sort of superstars usually from the ropes. This time Kane's hanging from the table, head first to the floor, look quite gruesome. We see an RKO attempt, and he's actually pushed into the ring post, but Randy does seem to get back advantage when she's put back in the ring. Kane goes to the top rope, obviously going to go for his clothesline. Randy counters this and turns it into a superplex. But then, as we say, a lot of counters go into the match, and it sort of plays in towards the finish as well, because again, RKO is countered, goes into the ropes, runs into Kane's chokeslam. Again, it's another near-fall attempt. And Kane then attempts to do a tombstone pile drive on a steel chair. Again, it's a story of counters this match. Randy slides off the back, ducks a clothesline, hits the RKO, and gets the 1, 2, 3. And of course, one thing that's noted in the actual, before we even got to going live on air, was actually the mention of the fact that this match is a Falls Count Anywhere match, but it did finish in the ring. Did that harm your opinion of this match, Scott, overall? But did you enjoy it as well?
Whenever I do my shows, I look at the card before I watch it, and then I pay particular attention to like the opener. I'm like, is the opener good? Would I have had this match open the show? And this is probably the right call. There's one other match I maybe could have opened the show, but I thought this one was probably the right choice. I remember the story before this, because I know they faced each other at WrestleMania 28, which Kane had won. Quite surprisingly, I thought Orton would go over there. And then they kind of added Paul Bearer to the storyline, and they don't really mention it during the match. There's that point where they're like brawling backstage and are near like a freezer, because Orton had put him in the freezer, like, I don't know if it was a SmackDown or something before this show. But it's a Falls Count Anywhere match. I'm kind of glad they actually took it to out in the crowd and a bit of brawling, but it's a Falls Count Anywhere match. I've seen pinfalls, especially in like the hardcore style back in the 2000s. I remember I watched SummerSlam 99, Big Boss Man. No, Al Snow pinned Boss Man on a pool table. That's the definition of a Falls Count Anywhere match.
Yeah.
I thought one thing I wanted to point out is I thought Booker T on commentary was annoying, but also quite hilarious at the same time. Just busting out just random catchphrases. He called Kane a boy at one point, even though Kane's like a 45-year-old man at this point. But Orton at that stage was a bit... Was he in a lull? Because he wasn't really in the world title scene. He was... But no, it was probably the right choice to open the show. I enjoyed it, but I kind of wish they'd finished in the backstage area.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there is always that thing, like you say, with Falls Count Anywhere, of doing that sort of element. But maybe they wanted to make sure that the Chicago Live crowd got to see it in the flesh, and it's probably obviously the clearest place to see it is in the ring. Barry, what were your thoughts with this opening match? Did you enjoy it?
It was a good choice for opener. I enjoyed it. I felt like it went on a little bit too long. It just felt like it felt longer than 16 minutes. I mean, I felt like a good half an hour, 35 minutes sitting at one point. Like, this is taking far too long to finish. I think finishing in the ring was the right thing to do. At this point, Kane just kind of was just there for a paycheck, really, wasn't he? Like, he just kind of, he was just like shell of the Kane that we all love and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I thought it was okay. Good opener to the show. It set up well for you to enjoy the show, and that's really how it was just there for me, to be honest with you.
No, I know what you're saying. I mean, it's kind of for me, it's always felt like a random feud, Randy Orton and Kane. And like, I mean, Scott was going to say that there was the obviously the attack on Paul Bear, and obviously there was an attack on Cowboy Orton as well on the build up, I believe, from Kane to they got Randy to go backstage and get attacked by the Pipe as well. But I mean, like when you look at it as a match, it was a fun match, and like you say, it's fun. There was the variety. They did go to different areas. So I mean, overall, this match I think delivered as well as it could do. I think some of the big spots, like I say, there was a lot of countering. It just felt like you could tell these two had wrestled before, as Scott mentioned, the wrestled at WrestleMania 28, and you could see that here because everyone seemed to know which move was coming next. And I suppose in a way that's kind of a good thing, because you see all these matches that are rematch. People don't learn from their mistakes. I suppose here that's a good story in itself that these superstars had learned from their mistake. But let's go to the star ratings then. And Scott, I mean, as you gave your first thoughts on this, let's get your rating first.
I was torn between a 3 and a 3.5. but I'll go in the middle. I'll probably give it like 3.3 1/4. It was good. Barry brought up a really good point. It went 16 minutes. I did feel a little bit longer than that. There were some cool moments in it, so I've given it 3 1/4. It was a good match, and it was the right choice to open the show, so I've given it 3.25.
Sounds a fair one. Barry, how about yourself?
I'm being a lot harsher than that, as always. You know what I'm like. I'm a stingy person with my star rating. So I'm going to say a 2 stars. It was enjoyable opener. It was there. Felt like it went a wee bit too long. Orton didn't feel like Orton as he should. And Kane just felt like he was just there just to put a mask on and take some money, which I would do the same, to be honest with you. But 2 stars for me.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go with 3 stars myself. I thought it was enjoyable for what it was. I thought there was an okayness to the story. But I mean, Barry, to be fair, we're used to this review. I'd be disappointed if you didn't give a lower star rating at this point. Do you know what I mean? It's
that feeling, but isn't it, like with just Kane as well? At this point, you've got Orton and Taker feud to look back on, which is very fun, very good. The older guy and the younger guy that works really well together. Orton at this point was already like a legend, and then Kane was just it didn't feel right for me. I felt a wee bit awkward, but you know what I'm like. I'm on anything, to be honest with you. So.
It's got to be done where it's got to be done. Well, but Big Dave himself, we like to give Dave a shout out on these as well. Dave Meltzer gave this 3 stars himself as well. So I think across the board, mainly, a lot of people did find it quite enjoyable. I've got some good news, ladies and gentlemen. We said that Scott was waiting for his takeaway. It has arrived. So Scott will be joining us back on the stream very, very shortly. But I think he's actually ready to join us now. Scott, you must be a happy man.
Yes, I have. I've got some scampi, and I've also got a fish supper, so I will be tucking in when I can.
That's a good stuff. We look forward to hearing more about it. We'll get a review as we go along as well, so the viewers know whether they should make an order of that takeaway as well. But as we do in the meantime, we'll come away from Randy Orton and Kane, and we'll give a quick mention as well, because John Laurinaitis and Eva Marie, who remembers them being people power and being a duo backstage? Of course, it was the Raw and SmackDown. John Laurinaitis won the GM role of both of them at WrestleMania 28. Teddy Long is wheeling in champagne for the two of them. Triple H does give a call as well, and he says that he will. John Laurinaitis says that he will take that somewhere more private. It's just filler. It's something that's not needed on this pay-per-view. In fact, it doesn't even pay off. We can say now, so we haven't got to go to it later. John Laurinaitis is asked what is done about this phone call, and John Laurinaitis says that is addressed on Raw by Triple H, and it does lead to the start of the Triple H Brock feud, and it leads to John Laurinaitis and John Cena's feud that goes on at Over the Limit 2012. We've skipped that part, thank goodness. We'll go into match 2. There's something that's arguably still a bit of filler, but you know what? It's Brotus Clay, and he's got his Funkadactyls, and as well, he's even got Hornswoggle dancing along to the ring to Somebody Call My Mama. A bit of a trivia question, guys, which I think is an awesome entrance music, by the way. Who originally had Somebody Call My Mama as their theme song? Scotty's got his hand up. He's ready to go.
Was it not Ernest the Cat Miller?
It was indeed back in 2004, I should say. The Cat Minute had that music, of course. So, I only realised that when I watched recently the 15-man Royal Rumble, which Eddie Guerrero won on SmackDown many years ago. But, it was fun to hear that music come back once again. But anyway, Brotus Clay is taking off Dolph Ziggler. And, of course, Dolph Ziggler this time is aligned with Vicky Guerrero and Jack Swagger. This match doesn't go on for very long. I believe it's about a 6-minute match between these guys. Jack Swagger trying to get involved where he can, but when Brotus Clay looks like he's going to get on top, Jack Swagger comes up to the ring apron. Brotus Clay knocks him off. Ziggler, as he does, jumps on the back of Brotus Clay. He's flung off, so the sleeper hold couldn't be used. Ziggler runs straight back in, goes straight into a hard head of Brotus Clay, and Brotus hits a big splash. And at this point, Brotus Clay is undefeated, and he remains undefeated, getting the 1, 2, 3. One of a small note I should make a note of as well is that fans were a bit mixed with Brotus Clay. They were cheering a heel Dolph Ziggler. So, Barry, let's get your thoughts on this match. What did you think?
It's a squash, wasn't it?
Yes.
No point in it really being there. Could have been on a Raw or SmackDown. Could have done something on a show with it. Told a story. I didn't like it. The dancing bit was pretty fun on the coming in of the dancing. That was a bit hit. But Aye. Plus, it's so sad to see Ziggler just being used like that. It's like he's just consistently just being used. Like the guy could have been huge, a megastar, and he's never took the chance really to go for it. And then WWE's just never saw that it's a chance to get him. And I didn't like this. Thought it was boring, and I kind of just spent my time going through my phone when this was on.
Sums it up perfectly. Scott, what were your thoughts of Brotus Clay versus Dolph Ziggler from Extreme Rules 2012?
The best bit was the headbutt. That's all I'll say. I think they should have swapped who was... Because you think about it, Dolph Ziggler would win Money in the Bank not like 2 months after this. If you had Swagger versus Brotus Clay, it would have made more sense. But the fact that he had a guy who you're potentially going to book to win Money in the Bank get squashed in like 4 minutes, it didn't make much sense. But no, the best bit of the match was that headbutt. And Ziggler is good at making people look better than what they are. And that was my impression of that match. But like I said with Barry, I was like, it was filler. It was just like they had that stat card that it just had to be, you had to fit things in between like your big matches. So I think that's all I can say about it, really.
Yeah, I think you summed that up pretty well there. Like you said, this is the filler. This is the point. We've had a long opener. I mean, for Barry said he thought it was longer than most did. But, I mean, you know, it's one of the things where you say, right, okay, we need to have a short match here, not to feel so impactful so quickly. Brotus Clay, like you say, he does get the victory. Ziggler makes him look better than probably what he actually is. So, yeah, it is what it is. It's not a great match, sadly. And at least maybe WWE were listening to the crowd, though, because Brotus Clay's undefeated streak would stop in June. And like you say, Dolph Ziggler would go on to win Money in the Bank. So the roles would reverse very, very soon. But let's get, just before we go to star rating, Scott, what have you got for us, mate?
At least he was better here than what he is now. I mean, have you seen Tyrus and Brotus Clay now? Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, true. I haven't checked out the NWA recently, but I know he is. There has been a champion there in the recent times. But we've got someone in the chat. Thank you for joining us. As hey, buddies. Hey to you as well. Thank you for checking us out on the stream. It's great to have you on board. But yeah, let's get the star ratings. Barry, let's start. I've got a funny feeling that this one may not be as high as the first one.
Nothing. 0. No even point in rating it. Just cut it, skip it, go to the network and just skip over this one. Pointless.
Absolutely. Peacock, get your money back. Scott, what's your rating for this match? 1 star.
Give it 1 star just for that headbutt. I thought that headbutt was awesome.
That headbutt, one headbutt, 1 star. Sounds perfect. I have to agree. For me, this doesn't do a lot for me, this match either. I thought it was quick. It doesn't get the right guy over. Like you say, Dolph Ziggler is that guy that can make people look special. But yeah, it's that and the entrance of Brotus Clay. Somebody call my mama, because let's be fair, I've been singing it ever since. So for that reason, yeah, that's kind of fun. So 1 star for that. 1.25 because of the music. There we go. But yeah, Dave Meltzer gives us a 1 star. And yeah, it's pretty forgettable, to say the very least. We are going to go into the chat, and yeah, we've got a crying, laughing face there for the dud there for you, Barry. So there we go. We've got that shows how well that is seen there. And Big Dave Meltzer gives that 1 star also. So yeah, that's pretty much that. But go on, Scott, before we go to our next match.
What did Dave give the Orton Kane match?
He gave it a 3 star.
Okay.
So he was pretty satisfied with that, but I'm not sure he was that satisfied with this next match, which of course was the Intercontinental Championship. The Big Show. Remember, Big Show was an Intercontinental Champion defending against Cody Rhodes. Now they spun the wheel backstage. It was like Raw tables match for these two. Pretty much a glorified squash match once again here. This match doesn't go for very long either. In fact, the only offense I remember Cody getting in, which was actually a cool looking spot in the 4 minutes of table to hit a beautiful disaster kick. I thought that was a cool looking spot. But apart from that, Cody's getting destroyed on the floor. He's rolled back into the ring. There are tables, of course, all around the ring. Big Show goes to get in the ring. A drop kick is done to his right leg as it's going over the rope. And of course, that takes his momentum to go his right leg through the table. Big Show looks embarrassed. The ref doesn't look like he knows what to do. But hey, you've gone through a table. We've got a brand new Intercontinental Champion in Cody Rhodes. So let's be fair, the celebration was almost the same celebration I'm sure AEW has each and every week that they beat Raw in the demographic. But I mean, seriously, this was kind of, you can look at it one or two ways. Either it's a creative finish or it's a cheap knockoff to get the title off the Big Show. I see Scott's enjoying his food just for a second. Barry, I'll come to you first.
It was wasn't good, was it? It was pretty waste of time again. There's been better finishes to table matches than this. Like, there's like the table match never has like an actual set of rules. Like, there's times that they throw the table at somebody and it breaks on them, but that doesn't count because it didn't. But then this happens, and so I don't really know what was going on. But again, I was still sitting playing around on my phone at this point. It was pointless. no need to take the belt off Cody, give it to the Big Show, and then put it back to Cody. I don't get it. No need. Yeah. Pointless.
It did seem pointless, but the reason as well it seems pointless also is that I don't believe Cody held the belt for very long. I believe Christian won a Battle Royal and then would take the title of him literally like about a month or two later. But Scott, what were your thoughts with the match here for the tables match Intercontinental title?
Wrong stipulation for this feud. I think the only reason I think Big Show won the title was so he got his WrestleMania moment, because I believe that was the story of their match going in, was Cody would just do these, is it vignettes of Big Show getting embarrassed at WrestleMania, like the one at WrestleMania 18 where he's in WWF New York. WrestleMania, baby, woo! Yeah. Losing to Cena, the sumo match. So I get why he won the title, but I think the stipulation didn't work. It's like, how is Cody going to put Big Show through a table? I mean, it is a creative finish. I mean, it's a different way of winning a tables match. I think they could have done like a no DQ or something similar. Maybe like a mini ladder match, because Big Show can't climb a ladder. Cody can. But no, I think creative finish. I love the disaster kick off the table. That was probably the highlight of the match. But I think it was a wrong stipulation for this kind of match. And then Big Show goes and kicks his ass anyway.
Yeah, literally after the match, I mean, Big Show embarrassed, choke slams him through a table, and then he does a gorilla breast, throws Cody over the top rope to go for a table on the outside, and that looked pretty brutal. And I mean, Cody looks like an absolute jobber at this point. But I have to agree. I think it's the wrong stipulation. Like you said, a ladder could have worked pretty well. But for me, I would have said a steel cage could have worked well as well, because Cody escaping the cage away from the Big Show. Perhaps it was the wrong stipulation, but unfortunately it is what it is. But it's star rating time, gentlemen. Barry, what's your thoughts of a star rating? I've got a funny feeling.
Nothing, dud, pointless. Skip this one. I know everybody just skip it. Go to the next match, because this is pointless to watch.
Scott, how about yourself?
I'm giving it a 1. I was like Barry. I was kind of like on my phone, because the finish did kind of come out of nowhere as well. Because you kind of like I was like researching for like some of the shows I'm reviewing. Looked up and I went, oh. Big Show's gone through the table. Oh, okay. Yeah. It was the same with the Brotus match. It was like, look up. Oh, it's finished.
Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes.
1 star. I've reviewed bad matches. These two aren't that bad. I mean, I've watched Horizon.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to give it a 1.5 panel. So that's generous. What I'll do. Yeah, I'm the generous one of the panel, I think. So that's what I'll do. I the thing is, it's a creative finish. I enjoyed it for what it was. It didn't go on too long, so I find it as inoffensive as. Comment here that has come from Beyond the Ring podcast says Scott is more caring about enjoying his meal right now. Is the meal good, out of interest?
It is. The scampi was delicious. I'm just plugging into the fish supper as we speak, but I might not be, because I think I know the next match, and I am really looking forward to talking about this next match.
There we go. The fish and the scampi may just go away for this next match, because we're looking forward to talking about it. But before we do, I'll give you just a little video package and also an interview with Daniel Bryan, of course, with Matt Striker. Asked why Bryan has the advantage at a 2 or 3 falls match, Bryan says that he gets more chicks and he's got a better beard. Of course, that's the obvious reason. Sheamus is like a Chicago crowd. He's overrated. Bryan is in better condition. Yes. Will he bring the championship back? Yes. We get the yes chance because Daniel Bryan is on the beginning traces of that yes movement in that heel character. And of course, as he walks away, AJ Lee, we get the video package where we see Sheamus beating Daniel Bryan 18 seconds at WrestleMania 20 after that infamous kiss with Daniel Bryan and AJ Lee. Of course, Daniel Bryan then puts the blame on AJ, saying it's your selfishness cost me. That was the kiss of death. AJ apologizes, but of course he still breaks. Bro kick a referee. He's fined $500,000 by John Laurinaitis because you don't want to get on the wrong side of him, do you? And if done again, he'll be fired. Of course, then we get a video package as well showing about on Raw, Daniel Bryan as a referee. So he gives a fast count so that Mark Henry can beat Sheamus. And then we see as well that Daniel Bryan also puts the yes lock on him. So that's the video package. That's the interview going in. Was you guys for 2 out of 3 falls? Scott, was you looking forward to Sheamus versus Daniel Bryan?
I was, because officially the very first match I watched when I got back into wrestling was this match at WrestleMania. And then I was like, what? 18 seconds? I thought this could have been a really good match for WrestleMania, but I was like, why do it? And then the stipulation intrigued me that it was a straight up 2 out of 3 falls. It wasn't like 3 stages of hell. So I was really looking forward to seeing, 1, if they were given time, and 2, what sort of story they would play out in this match. And yeah, I was really looking forward to this.
Nice. And Barry, yourself?
You don't know, I don't really like Daniel Bryan. I wasn't caring for this match. I don't really care for the guy. Not that interested in it. But it gets better. I'm not going to rant about this one that much, but it wasn't something I'm going to sit and down and watch on like a random night if I want to enjoy some wrestling. But it was okay. The video package done what I had to do.
Absolutely. And just to give a plug quickly, you have a video of why you're not a fan of Daniel Bryan. So I think this is the perfect point to say, after this video, go and check that on Barry's channel. It certainly is an entertaining watch. That is to say the very, very least. And you can learn a lot of why there is not a fandom for Daniel Bryan. But for me, I'm a fan of Daniel Bryan, and I must say I was a fan of this match. It was a very technical start, but it quickly became very physical. There was a cool couple looking spots in this as well, particularly Daniel Bryan running off the ring apron, going into a spine buster into the barricade from Sheamus. I thought that was a pretty cool looking spot. As well as that also, Sheamus, a lot of his shoulder was being attacked during this opening fall, and he runs after Daniel Bryan misses, goes straight into the ring post, and Daniel Bryan uses that ring post then to attack that wounded shoulder. But then Daniel Bryan approaches a very different tactic as we go towards the end of the first fall. We see those yes kicks. Of course, he's a heel at this point, but he doesn't stop when Sheamus is actually in the ropes and gets himself automatically disqualified. But I did think that the actual in-ring action between these two was very good, despite the fact that maybe the finish seemed a bit flat, but we'd learn why when it got to the second fall. And I'll do the first 2 falls together, if you don't mind, and then we'll go of our thoughts of it and then go into the final fall, because Daniel Bryan would then put the yes lock in straight away at the start of the second fall. And then, of course, he would eventually get the victory so that it would become 1-1. And at that point, Michael Coles, from not understanding why Daniel Bryan would get himself automatically disqualified in the first fall, then said it was genius. So, yeah, let's go into it. Scott, what were your thoughts of the first 2 falls?
I thought it was excellent wrestling. I maintain, I think Sheamus is one of the more underrated wrestlers, period. You forget how many good matches Sheamus has actually had in WWE, especially within this last sort of maybe 18 months. I think, but you forget, obviously, at this time, he was the World Heavyweight Champion. But I loved the tease of the 18 seconds to start with. I thought Sheamus trying to hit that bro kick as early as possible was just, that was genius. And then Sheamus banging out his own versions of submissions. He hits, I think, was it a Texas Cloverleaf he put on?
He does, yes.
You mentioned one of my favorite spots of the match was the Bryan's going for the running knee. You can't tell what Sheamus has done in the first camera because he kind of looks like, I was like, what's he done? I was like, oh, that looks. And then, as you said, it was a spine buster. I was like, genius. I thought, because it was brutal. But I loved Daniel Bryan. I loved when a heel gets himself DQ'd in the first fall to get an easy win in the second fall. I've always liked that style. I've never really seen someone win. I think, actually, I watched SummerSlam 2000 and Benoit and Jericho had a 2 out of 3 falls. And I think Jericho does the same thing. I think he DQs himself in the first fall but wins the second one. So I kind of like that way of going because you don't want to have too long between each fall unless it's like 3 stages of hell. But I really enjoyed this first little period. I really enjoyed this match. This is probably my match of the night. Spoilers.
They've definitely got great chemistry together in the ring. There's no doubt about that. And obviously, as I bring it over to Barry, of course, he said, not a big Daniel Bryan fan. This kind of probably maybe felt it did what it needed to do. But as you got into the first 2 falls, was you swayed a little bit that this match was better than perhaps expectation?
No, it was all right. I thought it was going to be good going in. I'm not saying Daniel Bryan's a bad wrestler. I agree that he's a good wrestler. I just don't like him. I don't know why. He's just one of those people that you see, and I'm like, I don't want to speak to that guy. No, my type of person. But the first 2 falls were good. I like the DQ finish to get obviously one to Sheamus, and then you get one. But then it kind of sets up to know how the ending's going to go, which I don't really like. But I did like the kind of first two falls. I thought it was pretty smart and cool booking.
Yeah, it's cool. But I mean, the thing is, it's also that the heel was backing themselves and says, well, look, I can lose 1 fall. I don't need to be pinned because I now will win the next 2 falls by doing this. So they obviously have that sheer arrogance and belief in themselves. So, yeah, I like the way that plays in. But like you say, it does lead to that inevitable kind of how that third fall is going to be because we've had, obviously, one finishing move done to end one match and not the other to do theirs. You'd think that's usually how it would go down. But let's go into that third fall. Obviously, Bryan runs into a bro kick. And, of course, that is a 2 count. It was a variation of a bro kick. It didn't really feel like a proper bro kick to start off that third fall. But we see more yes kicks, including a roundhouse kick for a near fall. Bryan also counters a superplex. At this point, he misses a headbutt from the top rope. Sheamus then takes advantage. Of course, maybe he's got problems with the shoulder, does multiple axe handles, which obviously should still hurt his other arm, but he seems to be able to get through the pain there. But he follows it with another bro kick, a proper one this time, to get the pin for victory. And for me, I really enjoyed this match. And Scott, like you said, this is your match of the night. Yeah,
100%. I think the third fall was great. The timing, I think, was about 6-7 minutes, so it didn't go too long. I thought the first bro kick is when he's getting the doctors treated and he hits that sort of weird bro kick. I thought, wow, Sheamus is just going to win it like that. Great kick out. It became a bit more physical in the third fall. And anytime I see Daniel Bryan go for the headbutt, I do wince a little bit because that's probably one of the reasons he retired for a few years. But yeah, a great finish as well. Bryan just turned around straight to a bro kick. But no, I feel like we got the match that we should have had at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
That was my feeling. I was like, because I knew Bryan was great. I knew Sheamus could perform. And I thought chemistry-wise, as you said, I think they worked really well together. So yeah, it's my match of the night.
I have to agree with a lot of that there. Obviously, you got the match that we should have had at Mania. Obviously, we got that and more probably with them getting the 2 out of 3 falls match. And obviously, this match going 22 minutes as well. As a finish then, Barry, overall, like you said, perhaps gave you the idea of what you thought this finish would lead to the match. But was you still satisfied with that ending?
It was a good match. It was fun. The ending was good. Sheamus sold well. Bryan done his thing that he's good at. Just that feeling of this could have happened at WrestleMania. Maybe would have been a little bit more special, would have meant something a little bit more. But it's done at Extreme Rules, which is never the best kind of sounding pay-per-view. But it's probably just me. Anytime Daniel Bryan's in the ring, I feel like you can just kind of start to chill out, get a wee bit of sleep in. He does the same stuff all the time. I'm glad Sheamus won. So it was okay. It was good, but it was okay. Just I don't know what else to say. For me, it's just okay.
Yeah, can I ask a question to both of you, and then I'll ask Barry one. So for the both of you, see, in a 2 out of 3 falls, do you prefer one with a stipulation each fall, or do you prefer this style of 2 out of 3 falls where it's just pure wrestling? Because I'm a bit unsure, because I do like the straight wrestling, but I do love the 3 stages of hell. But I just wanted to see what you guys thought. And I think for Barry, it's like, whenever you see Daniel Bryan wrestle, do you feel like you care more about the other person? And it's like me with the Young Bucks. I can't get into the Young Bucks. They put on great matches, but I think they're a couple of pricks, personally. But is that how you feel when you see someone wrestle Daniel Bryan? And were you rooting for Batista and Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30?
Man, WrestleMania 30 is if you've seen my video, you see, I didn't care. Didn't do anything, didn't sell anything for me. I don't care. The underdog thing, when the guy says he's the best in the world and he goes to be an underdog, well, you can't be the best in the world if you're an underdog. Be bit of a dick. Doesn't make sense. So, that's my opinion on him. The 3 stages of hell and the 2 out of 3 falls match, 2 different things. I think 3 stages of hell should be, obviously you have 3 different matches. 2 out of 3 falls matches, you can just do straight wrestling, which is always good. Back from the old NWA days. But Daniel Bryan, don't really care about WrestleMania 30. It's no emotional for me at all. I just don't like him. Don't like anything. It's not even like he's a good wrestler. I know he's good in the ring. Like, he's somebody that you should look up to, study, watch. But he's just not that fun. Just don't care about him.
That's fair. That's totally fair. I think, like you said, there were the 2 out of 3 falls. I think it depends on the circumstance. It depends on the match type. This here, for me, suited 2 out of 3 falls with no stipulations added to it. I think if you have a real blood feud where you can't settle it any other way, then get the toys, get the weapons involved. But overall, I'm more for one for seeing how it plays out. But this match, definitely 2 out of 3 falls. And Beyond the Ring podcast also says it depends on the depth and rivalry of the storyline, which I think that sums up quite perfect there.
I'll give you a good example of 3 stages of hell, and you have probably seen it. It's actually a great match. It's Austin Triple H. That is probably the perfect example of 3 stages of hell, because the first fall is a straight wrestling match. The second fall is a street fight, and then the third fall is a cage. And the fact that the third fall, they've beaten each other so much that Triple H just falls on top of Austin to win the match. But a better example of 2 out of 3 falls straight up wrestling is my favorite NXT TakeOver match. It's Cole Gargano. It was straight wrestling for the OTT, but that would be my. Or underrated is the one I watched for SummerSlam 2000 is Benoit Jericho. That's a great example of a straight up 2 out of 3 falls.
Absolutely. I think this is one of the best 2 out of 3 falls straight matches that I've personally seen, because I like the story and the way the depth is put into it. And obviously, we've just got to say here, both are great in their own right. 3 different stipulations, be very safe stipulations, not to use it too much. I have to agree with Beyond the Ring there for that one. But going to the star ratings then, let's get our star ratings for this one. So we obviously got a few other matches to get to. And I know C Nation Dog is already talking about the main event. I'll call it up now. He says that John Cena, he says Brock Lesnar should have beat John Cena at Extreme Rules 2012. We will get there, my friend. We will get there. Trust me. But Dave Meltzer rates this a 4-star. What did you give it, Scott?
4.5. I really enjoyed it. As I said, it was my match of the night. I have 3 matches that were 4 or more stars, and this was the highest one, 4.5. I really enjoyed it. I knew it would be good. It exceeded my expectations, hence why it's got a higher rating. I really enjoyed it. Nice.
Barry, I can't wait for this.
3 stars. I'm being generous. That's good for me. Genuinely is good for when I'm doing a 5 stars, 3 stars. It's just there. 3.
I think it's fair. It's fair. I've gone for 4, just because I enjoyed it, and I said I think it's one of the best in-ring non-stipulation type 2 out of 3 matches that we've seen. Off the top of my head, it's sort of a recent memory of watching anyway. So, looking forward to seeing what people have got to say in the comments. C Nation Dog has actually said here that I think it was too early for Daniel Bryan to have a World Heavyweight Championship run in 2011 and 12. It's an interesting thought there. Obviously, I know Barry's thought on that one already. Probably it was too soon for him in 2021. But Scott, what's your feelings on that quickly before we go to the next match?
I don't know, because I wasn't watching at the time. When I got back into wrestling, he loses the title, so I never saw his run as the champ. But I've always said a Royal Rumble should be won by your next big babyface, and Money in the Bank should be won by a heel. I've always said that. Or it's a babyface, you're going to turn into a heel. So if you look at all the Money in the Bank winners, 90% of them, most of them have been heels.
Yeah,
if I'm correct, apart from RVD, but he then announced when he was cashing in. But no, I can't comment because I wasn't watching at the time.
Well, Daniel Bryan was a babyface who cashed in and then transitioned into a heel. So I suppose it kind of fits the narrative perfectly of what you want. I would have said that it was probably a bit, I don't want to say it was too soon, because it was fine to see him as world champion, but I would turn around and say that the booking of it wasn't the strongest of Daniel Bryan at the time. And I think it came off a bit lukewarm of that run. I think he had a better run when he got to his, probably it's 2018, because even 2014, when he won the championship, that would have meant something more, hopefully to Barry as well, had he had a chance to actually defend it. But unfortunately, that was when it was the start of the beginning of the end for Daniel Bryan at that period. But we will move things on anyway. But Beyond the Ring podcast does say that he does agree with you, Scott, by the way, just so you know that. But we will be moving on into the video further. And Santino Marella and Great Khali, who knew they were friends? They were backstage. They were going to get themselves at front row seats for, I don't know why, really, a handicap match that's going to probably spend longer to discuss from us than it was actually to watch. This match goes less than 2 minutes. It's Ryback against, yes, read these names because you won't remember them in 5 minutes. I had to look back even after watching this show last night. Aaron Relic and Jay Hatton. Both of these two seem to go on a rampage on the microphone. Who let them talk? Saying that 2 is better than 1 about 15 times before Ryback comes out. Ryback comes out, and what I will say is he just basically destroys them in 1 minute and I think about 50 seconds. Just to give you 2 of the impressive moves to the finish of the match, a tailbone breaker is done to one of the guys. This is how we know so little about them. We don't know which one is which. And a shell shock is done to the other. And Goldberg chants as well from the crowd, and we see Ryback going, "Feed me more." Less probably said about this, the better, lads. I think we should skip over this one as quick as possible. This was not pleasant. Barry?
This was terrible, wasn't it? Like, just during it, I forgot the people's names. I was like, what's happening here? And it was awkward at the start because the guy stops. Like, when he's saying, like, 2 is better than... He stops at the 1 to wait for Ryback's music to come on. At Disney, he starts, then it comes on. It was just awkward. Timing was terrible. Imagine Goldberg against Ryback. But how terrible Goldberg was when he came back would have just been... It would have hurt to watch, and I'm glad we never got to see it.
Yeah, I'm pleased we never got to see it either. Scott, what's your feelings of this handicap match?
I skipped it because I went for my toilet break.
There you go.
I didn't see it. When obviously getting back into it, I did not care for Ryback at all. When he got put in the title picture with Punk later on in the year, I was like, he's not that great. And then you hear stories that Punk hated working with him. I did quickly go and watch the highlights, and I was like, why put a squash match? I never get when squash matches happen on pay-per-view. I've never been unless it's to make someone... I'm trying to think. Would Taker and Cena been like the last big squash match to happen on a pay-per-view between like 2 legit stars? Because it was just... I've forgotten who the two wrestlers were. But watching it like full blast, I went to the bathroom.
Fair play on that one.
And did a Ryback.
There you go. If that doesn't get Lance, I have to say, I'm going to do this one nice and quick then. Is it duds all round?
Yep.
I didn't even rate it.
There you go. I'll take that as a dud then. It's a dud from me as well. Obviously, like you say, the goal was to make Ryback look big in October before he would lose to CM Punk. But yeah, this doesn't do anything for anyone, particularly in 2021. So yeah, if you have an opportunity, it's very short, just skip it. Or if you can't be bothered to get up, sit through it. Why not?
And if Ryback's watching this, you can block all of us on Twitter because that's pretty much what you do now.
There's an invitation for him. There we go. Well, I'll tell you, we'll go on to what goes on after this, a video package then, and of course, an interview with Cena to be accumulated over recent weeks. Punk says, look, it's a Chicago street fight. Jericho's tried to prove I'm something I'm not. He's just proven he's a sad little man. Punk is going to put him to sleep. We get the video package, of course, Jerichoholic Anonymous. I like the fact they've used the Jerichoholic into this storyline. Jericho breaking a bottle over CM Punk's head. Is this Punk's first bender? The taste of alcohol? Are you tipsy? Are you going to want to have another one? It's in your genes. Your father's an alcoholic and your sister has substance abuse. Was that Punk? What was he doing in a pub? Did we get a visual of that as well? We get a propose of a toast as well. And if you have too much, it goes straight to your head. And of course, that's when we see the bottle smashed over CM Punk's head once again. Punk is forced to take a sobriety test, of course, because Jericho wants him stripped and suspended from WWE and no longer WWE champion. Punk looks like he's going to fail the test immediately because he's, not able to say the alphabet backwards or walk in a straight line. But of course, he was joking along. He passed with flying colours and attacks Chris Jericho. Punk says he's coming from a dark place, and this is about me kicking Chris Jericho's ass. So that is the video package going into this. Guys, we'll be excited for CM Punk versus Chris Jericho. Barry, I will start with you.
I was a wee bit excited. I thought the package was pretty cool. Again, Punk's never been a guy that I would go out my way to watch, but I was excited for the match. Chicago street fight, something that I never really get into when both people come out wearing jeans. But I was a wee bit excited for it.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a very good point. Actually, one of the questions I was going to go into before we went to detail of the match. But so I'll ask the same to you, Scott. Do you like the idea of them wearing jeans to kind of differentiate the match? And before we go into detail of the match itself, were you a fan of the video package and build to this?
I love this storyline. It was a different take on the Punk Jeff Hardy storyline. You know, when Punk was the heel, Jeff was the babyface. It was the roles reversed. Jericho the heel, Punk the babyface, and they were leaning on Punk's straight edge sort of sobriety. I actually love it when it's a street fight and the wrestlers wear jeans. I think it just makes it feel like a street fight. So same with like unsanctioned matches. Unsanctioned matches should be like the same sort of vibe. Give you an example: Triple H, Sean's in jeans, vest. Triple H is in his gear. I'm like one of the other guys. The same with Jericho Michaels, but at least Jericho comes out in jeans here. But I was really looking forward to it because this was probably my favorite storyline going into the pay-per-view. Yeah. But I hate when wrestlers wear their gears in like hardcore street fights. I think wear jeans.
He's a man of jeans. I think it's a nice touch. I think it adds something to the match. It just gives a different visual. But I can understand, if it isn't to everybody's taste or flavour. But going into the match, then let's just give it a bit of detail of how it breaks down. And we can give our review of the match. So basically, we waste no time getting to that brawling style. Weapons like steel chairs, kendo sticks being brought in. Of course, Punk actually using a kendo stick on Chris Jericho. Jericho manages to get the advantage though with a thumb to the eye, and actually takes off the turnbuckle pad as well, and hitting CM Punk whilst he's on the ground. A very interesting point as well. CM Punk has family at ringside, including his sister. Jericho takes off the cover of the barricade and puts Punk face first into that barricade in front of his sister. Jericho taunts his sister as well and gets slapped by her, which I think the whole crowd goes mad for as well. And of course, then we see Punk making the save at that point, going absolutely ballistic as well. The tabletops as well, the headers being taken off of those, Jericho being slammed through one also. We see Punk as well, trying to get himself the full advantage, but it doesn't last for too long because Jericho uses one of the monitors on the table to get the advantage once again. When Punk tries to get back in the ring, he does the spring-pulled clothesline, but gets slips off, and we see a kendo stick actually hit into CM Punk at this point. We see then Jericho, of course, he has to take it that one step too far. The heel Jericho at the point, getting booze and pouring it all over CM Punk as well. As he goes to the second one, he's kicked in the face as well. And of course, he ends up spitting the booze out everywhere. Thought that was quite a nice touch. Again, counteractive wrestling seems to be the way going through a lot of this match because we see like the counters of the GTS being countered. We see a lion salt then countered, a GTS countered once again. Punk being thrown face first into a steel chair that was positioned in the turnbuckle also. Jericho hits his code breaker and puts on the walls of Jericho. One bit of the match I wasn't a big fan of, but of course I guess it's a street fight. You need to break it somehow. CM Punk, obviously the rope break doesn't count. So he gets to the ropes, doesn't break the hold of walls of Jericho. He manages to pull a fire extinguisher from underneath the ring. I don't know how believable that seems to be, but he uses that to go in Jericho's face to break up this walls of Jericho. At this point, after that, we see that Jericho then once again going under the bottom part of the ring. The fire extinguisher is then grabbed and used at that point as a weapon outside the ring. Jericho lands on the announce table. We see Punk doing an elbow drop as well through the announce table and through Jericho as well, which is a very cool looking spot. We see then a pin attempt inside the ring. It's a kick out from Jericho and an Anaconda device is put on. Jericho then uses the kendo stick to code breaker with a steel chair onto the face of CM Punk, and Punk kicks out of two. And then for the finish of the match, we see that Jericho is looking to be cocky once again to put CM Punk in the position for the GTS. Punk signs off, does the swing shot to Jericho into that exposed turnbuckle. Love the fact that that is brought in much later back into the match, a part of the storyline. We see GTS and CM Punk gets the victory. And of course, CM Punk, like he does in AEW all the time at the moment, does a crowd dive as well after the win with his family and friends. And just for those that are wondering, this was the longest match on the card at 25 minutes and 13 seconds. So yeah, pretty much that is the detail of the match there. We have lost Barry for the second, but he'll be back with us, I'm sure, very shortly. Scott, what were your thoughts of CM Punk versus Chris Jericho?
This was my second favorite match of the night. I really enjoyed it. I think if you cut maybe 5 minutes off this match, I think it would have been my match of the night. I think if it was 20 minutes, it would have been my match of the night. I think it just went 5 minutes too long. There was a spell where Jericho puts on a chin lock. I'm like, why would you do a chin lock in a freaking street fight? I thought some of the... It's difficult with like street fights, ladder matches in these modern times to come up with something different and creative. And the guys try their best. I think I've seen the fire extinguisher spot before in the Shawn Michaels Jericho Unsanctioned match. They do the exact same spot where Jericho's got the walls, Shawn crawls, no rope. There's no rope breaks, but Shawn grabs the fire. I thought I've seen that spot before. The slip, I don't know if that was intentional, but I believe the plan was for Jericho to hit Punk with the kendo stick anyway. I love Jericho using the code breaker with a chair. I thought that was different and creative. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this match. Cut off 5 minutes, it would have been my match of the night, but it's my second favorite match of the night. I really enjoyed it.
That's good to hear. Barry, what are your thoughts of CM Punk versus Chris Jericho?
It's a good match, isn't it? A really awesome match to sit through, watch, enjoy. Good spots in it. It's a good ending to that kind of feud between those two. The reason I don't like jeans in these matches are that gives you the impression that this wasn't booked because these two guys just hate each other coming out there to fight, but they know it was coming. Got a wee good video package for it. So what's the point in wearing jeans? Did you buy new jeans for the show? You've got your in-ring shoes and stuff like that. It's just a wee gripe that I've got. That they can literally just start out in the background if you wanted to, like out in the parking lot or in the back and bring your way out as an actual street fight. But it just always bugs me, and it always has for years. But good match. I enjoyed it. Spots were good. Punk going over was definitely the right choice. Two of these guys just work well together, don't they? And I wonder if we're going to see them tie up in AEW soon, which I don't know if it will be as good as this, but might be interesting to see.
It certainly would be interesting to see. And of course, it's not the only all AEW match that takes place on this card. Of course, we mentioned Big Show and Cody earlier on in this match, in this review. But I think the same as you guys said there. This ticks a lot of the boxes. This match. I love the spots there. I love the particular use as well with CM Punk's sister sitting in the crowd. I think that's a fun little moment. I love the use of the alcohol as well. Like you're really touching into parts of the real narrative of that storyline and putting it in front of us on pay-per-view. Because so many times you see a lot of things done into storyline and it comes to pay-per-view and they seem to be neglected. This isn't neglected here, so they make sure they focus everything. But I do agree with Scott. I do think this match goes on slightly too long. Maybe they could have cut a bit of filler in the middle out. But overall, I think it's a very, very enjoyable watch there. But Scott, just before we go into the ratings, you look like you got something else you want to add.
I kind of just wanted to ask the pair of you, which of the two do you prefer between these two? Do you prefer this match or do you prefer the one at WrestleMania? Because me personally, I prefer this one. Although the WrestleMania match is good, I prefer this one just a little bit more, but I just thought I'd ask that for you.
That's fair. Barry?
I would pick this one. I think this one's a bit better than the WrestleMania one, even though, like these guys said, this one does go on like 5 minutes too long, but I kind of prefer this one.
I would agree. I feel that this one is better just because the layer and the narrative of the storyline is more in depth than what it was at WrestleMania. They kind of were building blocks up to WrestleMania. Once you got past WrestleMania, you got to this, you got the full package of the story. So there's a lot more to take out and enjoy. And of course, with the street fight element as well, the toys are out to play. So yeah, there is some fun elements of this for sure that I think just makes it just about top WrestleMania 28, even though you would argue that, of course, WrestleMania 28 is a bigger stage. But let's go over then for the star ratings. Scott, would you rate this match?
I've given it 4.25. I think it would tied Bryan and Sheamus, but I've said it just went 5 minutes too long, so I brought it down to 4.25. But I still really enjoyed it.
Fair play. And Barry?
3 stars. So it ties with Bryan and Sheamus because I feel this one was better than that.
I think that's fair. I've gone for a 3.75 for me. I enjoyed it, but like I say, the little bit of length of time just takes a bit of the star rating away. But like I said, the narrative part of this match really is what builds more of it up for me because the street fight is a street fight. But I do think these two are quite clever the way they go about it. Dave Meltzer has given it a 3.5 as well, just if anyone is keeping score at home. And we have a few comments from C Nation Dog, so let's call them up right now. And he's making sure that CM Punk, as WWE Champion, didn't main event much pay-per-views. That's very true during this era. He's usually the sub-main event a lot of the time. He's not even sub-main event on this show here, especially while babyface as well. CM Punk was not main eventing pay-per-views. It was John Cena every time.
I'm trying to work it out. Survivor Series, when he won the title, he did main event. TLC, he did. The Rumble, it's the Rumble. You always have the Rumble. The Chamber, he opened the show.
That's true. He opened the show. WrestleMania was not the main event because it was Rock and Cena. He didn't main event here. The next pay-per-view was against Daniel Bryan, which was main evented by John Cena, John Laurinaitis. No Way Out in June was John Cena versus The Big Show in a steel cage match. Money in the Bank, I believe Money in the Bank was the one there. And from, SummerSlam onwards, my memory is not as good at this second. But usually, it was John Cena.
No, it was Brock, Triple H.
Okay.
Night of Champions, he main evented against Cena.
That's true, because he turned heel at that point.
He turned heel. Then Hell in a Cell, he main evented against. So basically, as soon as he turned heel, he main evented the show.
Yeah, basically needed that change to make that significant. But of course, he also missed periods like December TLC. He was actually injured at a point before he was to take on The Rock, so he wasn't even involved on that pay-per-view either. But fun comment anyway from C Nation Dog there. He does go on to say as well, what do you think of WWE not having Chris Jericho win the 2012 Royal Rumble when he was supposed to? Interesting question there. Obviously, Sheamus did go on to win that. I would say that I'm okay with it because it was building a new star. Because Sheamus at that point, I think, wasn't established as a top guy. He probably still isn't established as a top guy. Scott said earlier in the video, he's probably still seen as quite underrated as a talent. But Barry, what were your thoughts? Would you have preferred Jericho to have won the 2012 Royal Rumble? Or was you happy with Sheamus?
I think Sheamus was the right call to win it, wasn't it? Like you say, getting a new star, getting out there. obviously it didn't pay out. He still he still seems to be just mid card, upper mid card, floating around there. But it was cool getting somebody new to win the Rumble. I always like seeing somebody new win it. Like a talent you can try and build something with is always better. But I think it was the right person. Jericho would have just been another thing to say that he won.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, he was in the championship match of WrestleMania anyway. Scott, do you agree with us or do you disagree?
I mean, I was a Jericho boy. I still am. I think it's the one thing I feel he should have won. Well, I think that's the only thing he never. That and King of the Ring were the only two things he never really won in the WWE. It's the same with Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle never won a Royal Rumble. So, but having those two as the final two was the right call. And yeah, I'm the same. I was a Jericho boy, so I was like kind of wanting him to win. But kind of looking back, I'd be like, yeah, Sheamus was probably the right call.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, as a flip to this question, just before we move on, I think the time Jericho should have won the Royal Rumble was 2017, and that could have built up then for the Festival of Friendship with him and Kevin Owens, and that then genuinely could have been a main event. But of course, things changed, didn't they? Thank you, Vince. Thank you, Goldberg. Didn't ruin my fun at all. Anyway, we'll go on then to what would be our next part of the show. And, well, we got a Divas Championship match, didn't we? Because we had to fit it out somewhere because, of course, the women's matches weren't treated with the same sort of level of respect as they are today at this point. In fact, it was supposed to be Nikki Bella with Brie Bella against Beth Phoenix. But, of course, Beth Phoenix injured herself on Raw in a Lumberjill match, which made her lose the belt to Nikki in the first place. She was not cleared, and Nikki was be given a surprise opponent. Eva Marie said that would be given, which Eva Marie, a heel, giving the heels a bit of a hard time and doing something of a babyface move, a little bit questionable. But still, we digress. We go to the match then, and obviously it's Layla who she'll be taking on. Brie Bella trying to get involved where she can. Eventually, we do see Twin Magic where they do switch around. Layla does hit a neck breaker, and we get a brand new Divas champion. Now, I must admit as well, this was a little bit messy in places with counters and near falls, kind of almost both of them almost assisting the other one in helping them to do the moves. And that's not to be harsh on it, but that's just kind of what I felt I saw. This match wasn't that great. Barry, what were your thoughts?
It wasn't that good, wasn't it? No, it was just, it was like the little breather match where everybody in the audience is going to go grab a beer for the actual cool wrestling match coming up after it. See, when they do the Bellas, always when they done that like switch thing at this point, always put me in mind of Doink the Clown in 1993, and it gives me flashbacks from doing my watch-alongs. So when I had to rewatch that, I got flashbacks of that clown changing like 10 times, and I wasn't that good.
That's fair to say. Scott, what were your thoughts of this match?
Thank God women's wrestling's got better in the 9 years, because this, as you said, this was a mess. Layla looked rusty. Nikki obviously gets a lot better throughout the years, but she wasn't that great either. I always feel like if someone's new that's a wrestling fan and loves women's wrestling, is probably glad they didn't watch back then, because this is what you got. Like, when doing my retro shows, I'm struggling. The amount of women's matches I've seen is minimal because it's a lot of old shows. I think SummerSlam 2019 was probably one of the rare times where I actually had, I think, 3 women's matches. So I'm trying to think of a wrestling like YouTuber or someone we know that's a big fan of. Would they enjoy this if they were a fan at that time? Probably not. So that's why I think women's wrestling has completely changed. It's far better than what it has any right to be. And I would usually, at this time, 2012, 2013, I would skip the women's matches because they weren't that great. It was only when NXT came along and the 4 main people, shall we say, the 4 horsewomen, changed people's perception of women's wrestling. Even though Stephanie McMahon claims she is, but that's a lie. I feel bad for like Beth Phoenix as well, because Beth during 2021 would have been superb. I'm trying to think of like good women's wrestlers at this time that would be great now. China, Beth, Mickey James. Well, Mickey James is kind of still going. Like Trish, Lita, because this is still the era of, oh, you're a model. Oh, try wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, around that time, no, but around that time, like you say, that was kind of the mold, wasn't it, really? It was more models involved. And you know, I mean, the thing is, credit to obviously Nikki Bella, like you said there. I mean, she does go on to say before that match starts that she will be the longest reigning Divas champion of all time. Now, of course, she did lose the belt on this night, but long term, she was right. She would go and get better and she would have over a 300-day reign. Layla, bless her, she had been out injured since the Extreme Rules the year before. So like you said, she was a bit rusty. She was better than what perhaps she was on the showing on this night. But I mean, as C Nation Dog says here, and no disrespect, but this Divas match was boring. It's forgettable. And the thing is, there are better women's matches out there.
I'll tell you, is Eleanor. Eleanor's a big women's wrestling fan. I wonder what she would have thought of this time period, because obviously she loves her women's wrestling. I always think to her, I was like, would she enjoy this period now? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, the only way to know is to ask, I guess. So, I mean, obviously, I was on YouTube, and I mean, obviously, to go and check out her channel because she does great content. I definitely would go and support her. She does some fantastic work. But we will give our rating on this match, and I think it's not going to go well all around the board, Barry.
I done it. No point in it really being here, which is sad to say. Like Scott was saying, women's wrestling's great at the minute. Back then, it was just seen as like a joke. This was the go grab a beer match if you were in the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Scott.
Dud.
Give it a dud. He's back on the fast food. That's the one that's the winner here. But yeah, for me, I mean, I will go. I tend to try to be the generous one. I'm going to give it a 0.25 just because they turned up. So yeah, it was not the best, but yeah, as C Nation goes to say, yes, she did become the longest reigning Divas champion back in 2015. And he also does go on to say very quickly as well from a previous statement here that Owens versus Jericho could have been for the Universal and United States Heavyweight Championship. Could have been a champion versus champion match back in the day. Certainly could have been interested had that have gone about. But let's go into what I'm sure most people have tuned into this video for. It's main event time. That's right. And it's an Extreme Rules match between Brock Lesnar and John Cena. And just to give a bit more, because we're a separate video package here with a few different things being said here. Brock said he wanted legitimacy in this company. No one has his resume. He's an NCAA double champion, the fastest rising star to win the WWE Championship. He actually wanted more, went to UFC, and he had to make an impact on return, and he went for Cena, who thinks he's the face of the company, and he's going to bring the pain to John Cena. Cena's on a losing streak after his loss to The Rock at WrestleMania, even losing to Lord Tensai. Remember that guy? Edge also telling Cena to wake up. Cena being told as well that he can't lose. This is all you want, and you have to find that John Cena. This isn't everything to Brock. And Brock goes on to say, what's going through Cena's head? I don't care. More importantly, what's running down his leg? Love that line. I think it's a killer line. I'm here to cause chaos, and I want to be a wrecking machine. I'm not a superstar. I'm an ass kicker. So that's the video package going into this. Of course, the entrances are something special as well. It's actually Brock Lesnar's first match back. So yeah, Barry, I mean, going into this, was you hyped for this match before we go into detail with that extra video package given?
Definitely. I think it's got a big match feel, doesn't it? It feels like it's important. It feels like Lesnar always feels important, especially after his UFC run. And the guy's scary to look at, so he always feels important. Cena being that guy that everybody loves to hate, it just feels like something that I can't wait to see. And that video package just added on to it. I was buzzing for this. Felt like a wee girl ready to watch it for the first time again.
Absolutely. Scott, how was you feeling?
The three matches I was looking forward to, I was pleased they all delivered. I loved the build up to this. It had one of the best like pull apart brawls I think I've ever seen. You know, the one where Cena just walks up to Brock and just doof, slaps him, and then Brock legitimately catches him with a forearm, and they get pulled apart by like nearly everybody. And the bit where Cena's smirking, I'm like, as Barry said, perfect word. It was a big fight for you. And then, do you remember Edge returned? I think was it the Raw just before the pay-per-view? It cuts a brilliant promo on Cena, basically telling Cena to wake up. You lost to The Rock, because this is when Cena was going down more like confidence, and Edge kind of rallying, said, "Look, you were the guy who put me through 2 tables off the top of a ladder. Wake up." And that kind of got to Cena, because you can kind of see it during the match. But I love the build up to this. But the pull apart brawl is one of the best I've ever seen until Taker Lesnar.
No, fair play to you, man. Fair play to you. Well, I'll tell you what, I have to agree that the pull apart with them two was actually pretty darn cool. But let's go into the match itself then. And there's a lot of detail to give actually in such feels like a relatively short match between the two, despite being 17 minutes and 41 seconds long. Cena runs straight into Lesnar. And of course, Lesnar takes Cena to the floor, uses his elbow to bust open Cena the hard way. We get a strong clothesline as well to Cena straight afterwards. After more early shots, the ref and the doctors actually check on Cena because he's already in a big bloody state. Once Cena actually gets up, he actually rushes in to take more punishment from Lesnar once again. We get the doctors check on Cena once again. Cena gets back into the match though and gets a shoulder block on Brock, who at that point then goes flinging into the referee, who goes flying out of the ring. So Charles Robinson is already a non-factor into this Extreme Rules match. Brock then dominates once again, attempting the Kimura lock before bringing a chain that Cena was wearing around his neck and wrapped it around Cena's legs. Another hard clothesline, and Cena hanging from the top rope with the chain, holding his legs. He was upside down. It's quite a sight to behold. Cena is let go though, and of course Brock actually goes to check on the referee, and at that point, that's when John Cena actually manages to try to get the advantage once again before being thrown into the ring steps. Brock Lesnar then actually brings the referee into the ring with one hand. I thought that was a fun-looking moment as well. Brock hits his F5, but of course the referee is not with it whatsoever. Another referee comes down, and it's a 2 count, and then the Brock hits the second referee. Lesnar brings in the steel steps of the ring, uses the Kimura on Cena on the steps. Cena powers out of the move, though, actually throwing Brock into the steps. Cena, though, once he looks like he's got advantage, once again, completely misses the leg drop from the top rope, ends up rolling outside. Lesnar waiting for Cena on the steps like an absolute beast that he is. Lesnar then actually springboards himself when Cena comes onto the ring apron. He goes to what looks like to be an attempt clothesline, but it goes flying over the top rope like a video game, if you want, landing onto the concrete floor, and the place goes absolutely wild. Lesnar gets back on his feet. He gets up and poses. He's loving the fact that he's hurt, which I think is a really cool looking spot. Brock, though, does the same thing again, and this time Cena has the chain and cracks Lesnar into the face, and Lesnar is bleeding. The crowd go mental once again. We see a double AA, what's called as an attitude adjustment, onto the steps, and Cena gets the 1, 2, 3. So it's a shock. Cena takes punishment for the entirety of this match, gets back for what seems to be 2 moves of doom, and does pick over the win over Lesnar. Cena does speak into the mic after the match and says that he's not meant to be speaking at this point, but if he does go away for a while, he's proud he had a fight like that in Chicago. He's beat up pretty bad. And he even goes into the camera and says, "Mama, did I do okay?" So yeah, that's pretty much the detail of the match. Barry, you said at the start of this video that you were looking forward to a rant at the end of this. Give it to us. What you got to say?
So it was a good match. Brutal, big fight feel, felt good. But the ending just kind of felt a little bit... Also, what Cena was saying after makes no sense. Like, he doesn't miss anything. Like, he kind of... Like, there's no... Like, he done like a see you later speech for nobody to see him later, which is pretty weird. But, like, the ending of the match didn't really make sense. Like, I don't really get why... I get why Cena gets the win, because he's Cena. The WWE wants to get the win over the UFC guy, make the UFC look more legitimate, and obviously it is legitimate. But it doesn't really make... There's nothing else there. Like, I would rather they had something, like maybe this point Cena turns heel to go to that point to get right into that confidence. He has to go to a place that he's never been before to turn heel in it. He cheats more, or he does something that he teases it, even if he still stays a face, but in the match he uses heel tactics to get the win, get a low blow or something like that. I don't know, the ending felt very, like Cena could have made something more of it, and it just kind of felt like he just wanted to be like, I'm going to win, I'm going to get my ass kicked for the whole match, and then I'll get the win, and that's it. Plus, why did he do the speech? What was the point? It was so awkward, because like obviously going back and watching it, you're like, what are you doing? Like, why are you talking like this? Like, you're not going anywhere. Like, did Vince say that he was going somewhere and then he didn't get to go? I don't know what was going on.
It's pretty random when you look back at it, because it's the last 7 minutes of the pay-per-view and you think, I could have skipped this part. I didn't need to watch this. But no, I mean, like you say there, I mean, the question is actually brought in from C Nation Dog here about the idea of should John Cena turn heel in 2012, because it was heavily rumoured around that time. And like you said there, Barry, I mean, the idea of John Cena here, he didn't need the victory at this point. It's Super Cena. He's almost like Hulk Hogan and Zeus back in the day. Do you know what I mean? Like the power done all the way, get that Hulk up at the end, and we've had our vitamins, brother. Do you know what I mean? John Cena at the end finds a way to win. That's what happens. But for legitimacy and for the realness of the way, it felt like a real fight from the starting point, especially with that blood point at the start, was really, really fun to watch. But yeah, the finish is a bit of a sour note for me. But Scott, I'm really interested to know your thoughts of John Cena and Brock Lesnar in this Extreme Rules match.
Brock looked like an absolute beast. He just looked. I maintain Brock Lesnar is one of the biggest attractions the WWE will ever have. You look at him now. I think he looks scarier now than he did back then. But it was violent. It was brutal. But I'm the same with you guys. That finish reminded me of why I stopped watching wrestling in 2009, and John Cena was one of those reasons. Getting his ass kicked, and then suddenly, oh, I'm Super Cena. Oh, I win. That's what it felt like. I watched Breaking Point 2009, because that's when I stopped, but I watched it for my review, and Cena and Orton do an I Quit match. And Orton beats the piss out of Cena for like majority of the match. And then Cena, oh, I win. That's why I stopped. I was like, oh, don't do this again. Brock looked like an absolute beast. You eventually did the right thing like 2 years later when Suplex City was born. Why not do it now? It was a great match right up until... I loved the chain spot, but then the fact it was an AA and that was it. You could have done just a standard AA, Lesnar kicks out, then you do the AA on the steps. Or how I would have done it, AA, Lesnar kicks out, goes for another one, Lesnar counters, F5 Cena onto the steps, and that's how I would have probably ended the match. But no, John Cena wins, lol.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, the thing is, I wonder if this is a bit of politics. Obviously, Brock Lesnar leaving after WrestleMania 20, kind of, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of investment. And this was probably Vince's way of saying, look, you're going to have to earn your stripes now you're back here. We're going to make you a big deal, but you've got to take a big loss at first to John Cena and make our guy look like the number one guy still. I'm guessing a lot of politicking like that probably happened. But yeah, like you said, it's not the right result here. Brock, of course, destroyed Cena the whole match here. But there were some really fun moments, like you say, up until those last couple of seconds. What I really like as well, compared to a lot of other matches, we see the Falls Count Anywhere. We see a lot of toys being brought in, like tables and weapons and all stuff like that through the night. Here was the steel steps and a chain, but a lot of it was kind of like, this is in ring. This is, pretty much like these two legitimately fighting, busting one another. I mean, obviously, Cena looks like he's busted open hard with the way that happens. So I like that there's that aspect of the match. Do you think that you see that differences with that at all, Barry, or am I on my own with that?
No, I definitely agree with you. I think it's the legitimacy of this match is like better than anything else on the card. And that's kind of, like Scott was saying, that Super Cena stuff. We were watching wrestling during that point, 2006 to 9, 10, when Cena was just always winning. It was getting very boring. People that weren't there don't understand how horrible it was. But it felt like it was more of the same. But like you said, I really agree with what you said, Steve. The legitimacy of this match just felt really cool. I liked that it was in the ring. Wasn't much kind of going into the crowd or anything, just kind of being there. And Lesnar just being a scary guy that he is.
Absolutely, indeed. There, Martin Correa is with us. He's asking how we're doing today. We're all doing very well. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for checking out the stream. We've got it just in time as we go to give our final ratings for the main event. So, without further ado, then, Scott, I'll ask you your star rating for this match.
I've given it just a flat 4. I thought I enjoyed the match right up until the finish. And it didn't feel like it was 17 minutes. I think you mentioned it, Steve. It didn't feel like it went, because everything was just so quick. I was like, did that go 17 minutes? But the finish, I've given it a flat 4. Like I said, it was the third match I gave over 4 stars. So, yeah, I think a flat 4 for me.
I think it makes still a happy camper at the end of it, despite even not happy with the finish, but definitely a good match there. Barry, what was your rating for this match?
Mine was a 3.5 stars, the highest one of the night, just because of the legit feel, big fight feel, and went home happy anyway. Even with Cena getting a win, disappointed with that. It got you talking about it. It done what it had to do. It's got us talking about it probably the longest part of the show, and it's still doing what it had to do from 2012 to 2021, getting you to speak about it and wonder what WWE's got to do with Lesnar going forward.
Absolutely, yeah. And of course, he would go on to have that big feud with Triple H leading afterwards. And like you say, he would eventually get the revenge over Cena. And we'd get the beast that we expected to see just a bit later on. But yeah, I mean, for me, looking at this rating, I'm kind of inclined to go around that 4 as well, because I was really invested with the story. The finish sounded a little bit, I think it could have gone higher had the finish been just a bit more to what I wanted to happen rather than what I didn't want to happen. But Dave Musters give this 4.5 stars. He's really give this a high rating for this one. But yeah, very high rating indeed. But I will say, just before we go on to our final pay-per-view thoughts, we've got Martin here saying that back around 2012, it seemed like Lesnar was the face, even though he was the beast, and brutalizing Cena, who is the hero. If you look at it, Lesnar handed to go over here, it made himself look like a missed shot. And yeah, I think we all agree it's a missed opportunity, it felt at this point, but it does feel that there maybe was a little bit of politicking, maybe just a little bit to make sure that Cena was still seen as the top guy. Lesnar, obviously, it makes up for what he did at WrestleMania 20, walking out of the company after so much time and investment put in to become the new star of the company. So yeah, I think that's probably what it comes down to. But I don't know which SummerSlam it was when he destroyed Cena, but that should have been this match, to be honest. That was 2014. And I think by the sounds of it, a lot of us probably would agree. But I mean, that's pretty much Extreme Rules 2012. Yeah. Almost at 21 there for a second. I'm very keen for this year. But so then go for it. Just to say, Barry, just a reminder on your match of the night.
Match of the night would have to be CM Punk against Jericho. It was fun, enjoyable, and that's my match of the night.
Sounds good. And what would be your star rating of this show?
I'm going to give it a 3 stars. It was an enjoyable show, a lot of filler in there, but Lesnar, Cena, Jericho, CM Punk, the opener of the show, Bryan and Sheamus in there as well, kind of saved the show. But there was a lot of kind of just skippable matches. Those kind of ones are go watch, so I would say 3 stars.
That's fair play. And Scott, just a reminder when your match of the night again.
The 2 out of 3 falls between Daniel Bryan and Sheamus. And well, I do, if you've seen my channel, I do letter grades for like the overall show. So I'm kind of torn between an A- and a B+, but I'm probably going to go B+. It is actually a really good show, but as Barry pointed out, there is a lot of filler. And I would say the first 3 matches kind of bring it down for me, but when you get from Bryan Sheamus, it's a really good show. So I'm going to give it a B+.
B+. And if we were to try and put that into star rating, where would we sort of look around that then? Were we looking around, what, about the 3.5, 3.75?
Yeah, like 3.5, 4 stars. It was like, if you took out maybe one of the filler matches, I think I would have bumped it up to maybe a 4, but I'll put it at 3.5. But if we're doing it if I was doing it on my show, it would be a B+.
B+. I like the sound of that. Well, I mean, for me, I think about a 3.5 is where I'm going to go for it as well. Obviously, the 3 main big matches that we've all said we like, those are the ones that I think really stand out. And I quite enjoyed the opener as well for what it was. So, yep, there's some filler, but I think overall, if you were to go and watch this, I think you would enjoy it. I think it's definitely worth 3 hours of your time overall. But one last question before we do our plugs and before we make way today. C-Nation Dog asking why this match was Extreme Rules and not at WrestleMania. Well, we had The Rock and John Cena at WrestleMania. So, yeah, Brock Lesnar was signed then, I think, probably around that time and debuted the night after WrestleMania. Now, of course, could Brock have been brought in before to face someone else? I'm not sure. But, of course, you have to remember that Rock and Cena was actually set the night after WrestleMania 27, was the earliest ever a match had been set for the next year's WrestleMania as a main event. So that was the reasoning why, but definitely Extreme Rules does feel like it was the first opportunity they could do this match, so they gave it to us straight away, which sometimes I think can be a blessing. If you look at, say, WCW, they did Hogan and Flair the second they could, so it's just trying to find the right times to maximize those opportunities. But that's pretty much all from us anyway, so before we go, I'll give everyone an opportunity to plug their channels. So Barry, if you want to give everyone a shout out about NonStop Wrestling Chat.
You can find me anywhere. Chat's NonStop. NonStop Wrestling Chat, NWC show. Just type it in anywhere you go. My face will pop up. You've got podcasts, watch-alongs, reviews, opinion shows, which I've started, which people like and don't like. So I also, like Steve says at the start, go check out my Why I Don't Like Daniel Bryan video and see if I can convince you on why the guys know that fun to watch. But you can find me anywhere. TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the socials. Get me on there. And thanks for the support if you go subscribe and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Make sure that you do, because it's always fantastic content. And like I say, consistent, a machine throwing out lots and lots of content all the time. And someone doing almost exactly the same in the retro world. Scott, you've been throwing out loads of retro pay-per-views. Give everyone a shout out of your channel.
You can check out YouTube, Scott Retro Wrestling. I'm on Twitter at Wrestling T Life, but I probably will change my Twitter handle soon. Yeah, like I said, I review pay-per-views that took place on particular dates. I've got a whole list of them. If there's multiple ones, I pick one or get you guys on Twitter to choose which one I review. I might have a couple of weeks where I've got a review every day, and then there's other times where I might only just have one or two. It varies, especially like the start of the month. I don't have a lot. It's usually like the middle 2 weeks of the month that I have a lot of pay-per-views. You get all the ones at the start, but no. So basically, I try and review all the shows that you don't have to. But I try and if like Barry or especially Steve, if he's doing like a monthly show, I probably won't review that show. So like, I think you did No Mercy. You and Barry did No Mercy 2007. I won't do that straight away because you guys have done it. I try and be a bit more respectful of that. I'll maybe review something else that hopefully took place on the same day, but that's what I do.
And it's great content as well. I recommend everyone go check it out. The links of both of the channels are in the description. Give them support, give them love, and of course they'll have some fantastic content coming out very, very soon. You can see the green screen is ready. What's tonight?
I've got Unforgiven 2005. That was one of the ones that you guys picked. A Raw exclusive pay-per-view. It was the Cena Angle main event. We had an excellent cage match between Edge and Matt Hardy. Kind of similar, but there were a lot of filler because it was just a brand exclusive pay-per-view. So there was a bit of filler, but it wasn't that bad.
Well, I recommend everyone go and check it out. Go over to the channel and give Scott some support and go and share your thoughts as well of Unforgiven 2005. But for all those that are watching SCW, then please like the video, share the video, subscribe as one if you haven't already. And after this goes off, then please drop a comment in the comment section. Share with us what you thought of this video, what you thought of Extreme Rules 2012. I look forward to interacting with you. But that's all from us anyway. Thank you very much to everyone that's been watching. This has been SCW Rewind once again. And Scott, you're going to play us out?
The pay-per-view theme song for this is an absolute banger. It's by one of my favorite bands, Shinedown. So I always love the pay-per-view theme songs. I always try and list them, but it's a banger.
Absolutely. Well, make sure to go on your favorite streaming site and make sure to go and give that a listen. And thank you to Beyond the Ring podcast saying, awesome stream, guys. It was a very fun. Loved the discussion. Thank you very much for watching as well. Please do enjoy it, Beyond the Ring. And make sure to go and give him some love as well. The channel is absolutely awesome. But that's all from us anyway. Thank you for watching. You've been watching SCW Rewind here on YouTube. Take care. All the best.